All right, the last award, and then I get to get started, is our Distinguished Public Service Award. And interestingly, we were going to give this award to Representative McMillan last year. And as I understand, he got sick. And we lost him. So tonight, instead of me standing up here and trying to say something, a close family friend, Mr. David Lorenz, is going to come up and share some words on behalf of the family as he accepts this award. So Mr. Lorenz, if you come on up. Y'all give a hand for Mr. Representative McMillan.
Thank you so much. It's quite an honor to be here. I was a member of this chamber for a long time, and it has done a lot of very good things for this area. I go back more than 30 years with Steve McMillan. I've worked with him side by side. I've traveled with him behind the scenes, done a lot of things with him politically, in Montgomery and locally, up until last month that he was with us. And I have to really discipline myself because they wanted me to say a few things about Steve, and I could get carried away and we'd be here much longer than any of us want to be. Steve spent 42 years in the legislature in the House of Representatives. One other person was there a little bit longer, just by a few months, Alvin Holmes, representative. With that exception, Steve would have been the longest serving representative in the history of the state of Alabama. And he just missed it a few months. In that period of time, Steve demonstrated what a lot of you know. I see a lot of elected officials. I see a lot of people who have been around a long time here. And by the way, it's good to see all of my old friends and acquaintances here. Steve was a relentless devotee, totally committed to his constituents. He lived, breathed, and talked about his constituents all the time. Even when we were off somewhere doing something fun, it was always something about his constituents. Steve never used his position, his great respect and influence in Montgomery to enrich himself. He never capitalized off of that, and I can't say that about a lot of politicians up there. As a lot of you who knew him would agree, he was an amazing public servant. I don't know how he went to so many meetings. Over the years, I've been involved in a lot of committees, councils, and boards of directors in the county. When I was in several education committees, PTAs, capital improvement board for the county school system. Whenever we would have a meeting, Steve would be there. I was a firefighter chief in the Fire Chiefs Association. Every month when we would have a fire chiefs meeting, no matter where it was, North Baldwin County, Little River, Orange Beach, Steve would be there. Economic development. Donna and some of you guys were a part of when we did the Economic Development Alliance, and I was on that board for a long time. Anytime we had a meeting of significance, Steve would be there. He was always there. He was always there. Everything. It's just amazing that he was able to cover that much territory. You know, he had a real estate business that David did. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people wouldn't believe that he would have time to run a business, but he had a business, McMillan Associates. I could go over a lot of funny anecdotes, which I'm not going to do, but a lot of bills that he was involved with throughout the state, a lot of things that he did for the city of Foley, Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, the schools down here, every place. So many little things. You could always count on Steve to help you out. But there's a couple of issues that I just want to bring up to remind a lot of old timers and maybe inform some of the new people that may not even know about this, and some of the old people kind of forget about things. I think maybe the most monumental thing Steve ever accomplished in his long storied career was Gulf State Park and our beaches. Those are assets that are not just beneficial to Gulf Shores and Orange Beach and that community. Those are assets that benefit the entire county. It's an economic development tool that not only attracts tourism and sustains it, but also provides a tool to attract new businesses like we've done. When we got Ace Hardware down here, I was on that committee. One of the biggest things that brought them here was they liked being in proximity to the beach and fishing, even though they didn't live down there. That was a huge asset. And we underwent a period of time, a dark time, some years back, where powers originating in Montgomery wanted to change the park and turn it away from public ownership and privatize it for private development. I sat in the meetings with the people wanting to do that, and they outlined these grandiose plans that we can take that 2 miles of beachfront and make a fortune off of it by putting, as they called it, Las Vegas-style hotels down that stretch. Go back on the lakes, condominiums, strip development. Some of you guys remember all of this. And the state would benefit by the tax revenue that it generated. Well, now, do I have to, think about that. A lot of us banded together, and I'm very, very proud to say that every chamber in the county jumped on this, and we worked with Steve McMillan. And I see so many faces here, Donna being one of them, Darylyn Benner, I don't know if she's here. I'd like to see her if she is before I leave here. Used to be with the Fairhope Chamber. But let me tell you something, Steve McMillan worked his tail off, and he turned the tide on that issue. And he got unanimous support from the entire legislature to stop that. And when that happened, all the people pushing it, and you'd be surprised. You really would be surprised at a few folks in our area that was behind it that stood to make a pretty good gain off of it. Once this happened in the legislature, they ran for cover. They disowned it. We stopped that. But it was because of Steve. And Steve was always, we used to say, Steve was a workhorse. He wasn't a show horse. He did this behind the scenes in the legislature. I'd sit up there in the gallery, and he was like a honeybee pollinating flowers, going around everybody, his colleagues, notes and all, when someone was speaking. And they passed these bills that helped support and stop that terrible thing that we thought that would happen to the Gulf State Park. About the same time, from the same sources, they had this idea of making more money for the state, and the state, as always, needs money. Well, we've got all that ocean front, that Gulf front, and we could do new leases for oil and gas development along the beach in the state waters. The state jurisdiction goes 3 miles out, and then there's a transition period between state and federal government that the state shares in revenue. And so they said, we can grant leases in our 3 mile limit and then try to promote leases in the transition period, and we'll be getting all kind of revenue from royalties for these gas rigs. Folks, we would have had rigs from the Florida border with Alabama all the way to Fort Morgan. Now, be aware there are rigs in the Fort Morgan area that go way back. And if you want to see what that looks like, and we're not necessarily against those, but that was already there. That would give you an idea of what our beachfront would look like. We've got about 32 miles of beachfront in Alabama. It would be lined with those gas rigs. There was no dispute about that. It wasn't, oh no, that's not going to happen yet. Steve jumped on that like a duck on the June bug, as they used to say, as did, thank God, the South Baldwin Chamber, Alabama Gulf Coast, Darylyn and the guys, and get a lady and gentleman in Fairhope, the whole county. We struggled with it, we did all we could, and Steve McMillan carried the mail. We got a unanimous resolution from the Alabama legislature to stop that dead in its tracks, and we did that. We weren't against getting petroleum resources. The objection we had was the structures of these rigs above surface. We said if you can extract gas or whatever you want and remotely process it where you don't have that infrastructure that's so terrible to look at, that's a different matter. We stopped that, and even beyond that, we parlayed the unheard of resolution that we got from the legislature on that issue, like the state park, to the federal government. We met with Minerals Management Service many, many times. Steve was right there. Oh, I wish people could have seen how he did. We were able to not only stop the new leasing in Alabama waters, we got a 15-mile buffer from the federal government that's written in the Federal Register, that was drafted here in Baldwin County, and made totally possible by the efforts of Steve McMillan. But he never, I get so worked up when I start talking about him, because he never wanted any to be in the limelight. He didn't want, to be on television and get all newspaper articles. He wanted to get it accomplished. He didn't care about his ego, his personal rewards he got other than doing what was right. But he, again, carried the mail on that. So those two issues, in my mind, was the most landmark things that Steve did that has stayed with us until today and in the future to guarantee the quality of life we have here in this county. And I just think he never got enough recognition and credit for his efforts in that. And so tonight I hope I just shine a brief little light on that. Steve set a standard for public service, what it means. And Francis, I know you respect Steve as much as we all do, but I tell you, the man set an example that is hard, some big shoes to fill. And we're going to miss him. But if we all think about Steve in the essence of what he stood for, rendering service, wanting to give instead of what can I get, Can I get more popularity, more votes? Can I strike deals under the table with somebody and wind up monetizing my position? If we start focusing on the essence that Steve represented, and render service to our constituents if we're elected, clients, customers if we're in business, friends and relatives, and start living by giving instead of focusing on getting, I think we'll have a better society, and we'll keep a little bit of Steve McMillan with us for a long time. So his family is aware, of course, of this award. They asked me to come here tonight because they couldn't be here. His two brothers, Phil and John, are not available. And his wife had broken her hip, actually, and is having a tough time recuperating from that. But this means a lot to them. And I think it means a lot to this chamber and all the people around here, really, for you to do this. I mean, this is big, I think. His family thanks you profusely. I thank you. And I think everybody should be thankful to have something like the South Baldwin Chamber here. So thank you very much. And I'll